Boxing Truth here, back with another video. Alright, let's talk about it. Let's talk about these two clout boys vying for attention, seeking some attention because no one's really talking about them. The two of them are kind of similar, in regards to their careers. They're both in dire need of a major fight, significant fight, still vying for respect in the boxing world. Devin Haney's a laughingstock right now. No one's taking him seriously. Paper champ. No one's even talking about him, even though he has a strap. Everyone's talking about Loma and Lopez and who's going to be the man in the division for the winner of that fight. So, that's making Devin Haney look bad. Of course, he has his supporters. Some people think he's going to go all the way. That he's the guy to be talked about in the division, even though, he's being gifted belts, won a world title, but has zero respect to go with it. And you got Gary Russell. Ever since he got his ass whooped by Lomachenko, he's been irrelevant. Yeah, he's fighting mandatories, but not really, fighting once a year, being forgotten about. So both of these guys are in dire need of a big fight, of a major significant fight in their careers, and they need it as soon as possible. Is it going to happen? Well, Devin Haney has finally responded. He's given the offer that Gary Russell didn't agree to, but he's willing to compromise in order to make this fight. The stipulations in the contract are no longer in place, which I agreed with Russell. There shouldn't be any stipulations outside of a rematch clause. There's no need to commit to another fight on the zone unless it's a rematch with Devin Haney, which is understandable. Devin Haney is the world champion for WBC. He's giving a voluntary challenger in Gary Russell a shot, so that automatically requires a rematch clause. No problem. But anything outside of that, then that's a deal breaker. That's not trying to make a fight. And that sounds like Eddie Hearn talking, for sure, if he's putting those type of stipulations. Look, let's do the one-off. There can be a rematch clause if Gary Russell wins, of course. Everybody's happy. He remains a free agent whether he wins or loses, and just has to commit to a rematch if he wins. And Devin Haney, he gets a chance to fight, a more higher profile opponent, because let's face it, no one's interested in seeing him fight a Wash Gamboa or Lee Selby or any of the names that Eddie Hearn mentioned. Which is my concern about this fight, because Eddie Hearn did an interview a couple of days ago on the Zone, and there was no mention of a Gary Russell. Not one word was mentioned. His name was not mentioned. He didn't regard him as a possible opponent for Devin Haney, Gary Russell. So obviously, there's definitely concern that this fight ain't gonna happen. And it'll be a damn shame, because that's what these two are known for, man. A lot of clout chasing, a lot of bullshit promises, a lot of call outs, and there's no action in the ring. There's no action. There's no confirmation of big fights for either of them. And both of these guys are in dire need of a big fight, a significant fight. Devin Haney needs to fight a proper opponent, because if he doesn't, he's already getting shitted on. He's already a laughingstock in boxing. His rivals are ahead of him right now. I mean, they're about to be into some serious fights. Teofimo Lopez, a rival of Devin Haney, is fighting for the undisputed lightweight championship. It's really for the undisputed championship. Devin Haney just got this paper belt that was emailed to him, so who cares about that? Sure, he has a piece, but that's the fight that's being talked about in the lightweight division. Loma Lopez. No one talking about Devin Haney. And that doesn't sit well with Devin Haney, which is why he's fighting for a significant fight. And you got another rival of his, Ryan Garcia. He's stepping into, and fighting a legit contender in Luke Campbell. So Devin Haney needs a proper dance partner. No Wash Gamboas, no undersized Lee Selbys. But, a guy who brings some name recognition, who is a current world champion. I mean, it's not the best fight in the world. I mean, I'm not I mean, a lot of people are excited about this fight. I mean, is Gary Russell moving up 2 divisions to fight a younger, fresher, much bigger, taller, faster guy in Devin Haney. So how competitive is this fight? We'll see. I mean, Devin Haney is still an unproven prodigy. You know, he still has a lot to prove, but, you know, beating a featherweight who's very undersized for the division, is that really going to answer the questions of whether he's the best lightweight in the world? No. But granted, it is a more interesting fight than what's being mentioned out there for Devin Haney. You know, I'd rather watch him fight Gary Russell than seeing him wash Gamboa, seeing him against other opponents that are being mentioned. So, if that's the best they can do, then, you know, bring it on. Bring on Gary Russell Jr. I wouldn't mind seeing him get his ass whooped, because I would favor Devin Haney, even though he's unproven.
Can you guys check one thing?
Even though he's unproven, he should be favored in this fight. He's the bigger guy. He's undefeated. It'll be in his weight class. It'll be on his network. So we'll see if this is a bunch of talk, a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of clout, a bunch of attention seeking, or if, you know, Gary Russell's for real. You know, this is a more proper fight for Gary Russell instead of moving up 4 divisions to fight Terrence Crawford. We'll see, man. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. I don't see the fight happening. Eddie Hearn doesn't even mention it, even though there's some negotiations behind the scenes. But, you know, it's a PBC fighter. It's an Al Heyman fighter. And you just never know when it comes to these type of situations. A fighter having to cross the street to make a fight. Especially when the fight is not as big as compared to a Crawford Spence, and that fight still hasn't been made. Or, you know, look how long it took Fury and Wilder to fight. So I think it's a bunch of bullshit. But we'll see, man, because, you know, Devin Haney does need a credible dance partner, and he needs a bigger name opponent. If he doesn't, it'll be a damn shame. I mean, you know, these two guys talk all this shit and end up fighting a bunch of nobodies. I mean, it'll be a bad look if Devin Haney makes all this noise about fighting Gary Russell. He ends up fighting a Wash Gamboa. And it'll be a bad look if Gary Russell talk all this shit, does all this clout, and he ends up fighting another mandatory or a nobody or a no-name opponent, which he's been doing a lot lately ever since Lomachenko waxed him. So, you know, we'll see. I mean, Gary Russell could just fight the winner of Santa Cruz Gervonta Davis next year. He only fights once a year anyway, so that's why I have my doubts that this fight is actually going to get made. And he'll get a much bigger payday fighting the winner of that fight than to cross the street to fight a paper champion in the lightweight division, which we won't be favored in this matchup. So, my hunch, it's a bunch of bullshit. I don't think the fight happens. I know a lot of y'all, a lot of people are excited about this fight, even though it's a featherweight moving up to fight a lightweight. There's better fights out there for both guys, but if it's the next fight for each guy, you know, then I don't mind. I'll watch. Doesn't bother me one bit to see Gary Russell take another L. But we'll see if it happens. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.